This is Hansi Flick's Barcelona against Atlético Madrid. No structure, no communication, and most certainly no leadership. After an amazing run of form in 2026, a 4-0 loss against Atlético has had everyone talking about Barcelona's high line again.
That's how bonkers this Barcelona team can be. Yeah. Now, if they defend like that again at home, the chances are they won't keep a clean sheet.
But do these criticisms actually have any merit? How does a system work so brilliantly in one game and then fail miserably the next?
Has an opportunity, cuts it back, Alvarez, it's 4!
In this video, we are going to be discussing some key revelations from this game and how they could affect the rest of Barcelona's season. Now let's take a look at some tactics, because Barcelona opted for a 4-3-3 with Dani Olmo starting in the left side of attack to replace the injured Rashford and Rafinha. However, despite this change in attack, it was Hansi Flick's choices in the midfield that made the main difference in the game. But before we get to this, let's address the topic of the high line. In my previous video, we discussed Barcelona's defensive problems and how the high line differed from the offside trap. Despite popular opinion, my main point remained that Barcelona's struggles in defense were not necessarily down to tactics, but poor execution. Because let's face it, every tactic in football has strengths and weaknesses. It's in the execution that the weaknesses are mitigated and the strengths are maximized, leading to an optimized performance on the pitch. In Barcelona's case, this is a club whose financial issues are well documented and have been for a while. I mean, Atlético were signing Ademola Lookman and Barcelona were going for Joao Cancelo. We are a joke in the transfer market. We can't even keep the teenagers we have. Hansi Flick wasn't brought into a club overflowing with resources. On the contrary, he was brought in to try to use the limited resources to steady a sinking ship. A seemingly impossible task. Fortunately for the club, in his first season, this man performed what was nothing short of a miracle. And so, come the next season, Hansi Flick has somewhat become a victim of his own overachievement. So much so that we might be forgetting to ask a very important question. What if this aggressive defensive line is the only way to make this Barcelona side that looked to shambles under Xavi competitive again? If we played a more balanced system, for example, patient possession football, do we have the quality across the pitch to dominate and penetrate teams like Pep's Barca? I beg to differ. We don't have a reliable striker, our fullbacks are not particularly world class, and our defense, well, our defense is our defense, isn't it? To make up for these deficiencies in certain areas of the pitch, Hansi Flick has had to deploy a tactic that engages everyone at all times to enable a system where players compensate for each other's weaknesses. Last season, it was Rafinha chipping in with the goals to make up for Lewandowski's limitations due to age. This season, it's been Fermin Lopez taking up really advanced positions to contribute in the attack. It's this tactical fluidity and positional flexibility that creates the need for a high line, and we've seen examples where this has worked brilliantly. Barcelona are the team with the most offsides drawn in the league for the second year running. However, due to the high risk associated with this approach, when it's poorly executed, it could easily look like the worst tactic in the world. So what should we be changing? Is it the tactic or the personnel? Because if you look at this, in the 22nd minute, Barcelona are already 2 goals down. As soon as the pass is played to Giuliano Simeone, Balde is already breaking the defensive line to put on the press. When Dani Olmo should be the one doing this, he's the left winger. This is just stupid, it's not even tactics. Giuliano continues to draw him out and Balde is just mindlessly pushing up. Now, as this is happening, the rest of the defensive line are starting to push up as well to retain the compactness. They continue to push up mindlessly to the point that they don't even realize when they are now in the opponent's half. Guys, these are professional footballers. This has to be a joke. Molina has now sneaked in behind and is ready to start the run. Eric Garcia doesn't try to close him down, seeing that Balde has vacated the space. Instead, he tries to go and put pressure on Griezmann, who's further up the pitch. Griezmann spots this and immediately releases a one-time pass into Molina, and Barcelona are cut through again. Too easy, guys, far too easy. And you can see Kubasi screaming just seconds later for the lines of defense to fall back instead of pushing forwards. This is our youngest defender, by the way. He's meant to be the one learning from the more experienced players. Where is the succession planning? Now, remember when I said Hansi Flick's biggest error in this game came in the midfield? Well, let's talk about it. Now, the one key outcome when you switch from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3 is while you gain more creativity in attack, you risk losing some stability at the back. This leaves the defense exposed and the team is susceptible to counter-attacks. When you then play highline, this issue is even more pronounced and the risk is doubled. The centre-backs push forward to bypass presses and help progression, but as a result leave spaces in behind for the opposition to exploit. So with all of this established, I found it quite surprising that Hansi Flick chose to go with Marc Casado as a single pivot against a highly aggressive team like Atlético. Simeone's men played with intensity in the midfield and we struggled to progress the ball from the pivot position in transitions. This not only cost us going forward, but perhaps more damagingly cost us at the back. Look at Antoine Griezmann's second goal. He actually starts from a poorly taken corner kick by Dani Olmo. Now, at the point the goalkeeper is about to launch the attack, look at the relative positions of Ademola Lookman and Marc Casado. He's supposed to be the pivot. His job is to close down Lookman and send that ball into touch to prevent the counter and allow Barcelona to regroup. But he doesn't have the speed to stay on Lookman, so now Lookman has all the time and space to get his head up and look for support. But look when Alvarez receives the ball, we've still got 6 Barcelona players against 3 for Atletico. This is where we talk about defensive awareness and in-game intelligence. It's not down to the manager's tactics right now, it's all about reading the game and picking up the players. Julian Alvarez is playing to Simeone's tactics. He wants to stretch the play to create spaces in the middle. It's too obvious. This is exactly what Lookman was brought on to do, stretch Barcelona's defense. Lookman on the left and Giuliano on the right. When the defense is stretched, the pivots have to tuck in more centrally to plug the spaces in the middle. Barcelona failed to do that on this occasion, and you can tell from the relative positions of the defense. Eric Garcia is dragged out wide to cover for Balde, so Balde has to be in the middle to plug the space. Or like we said, Frenkie de Jong, who would normally be the second pivot in defensive transitions. None of them is smart enough to plug the space, so Griezmann is allowed to creep into the box on his own. By the time the ball gets to him, now Balde wants to make a run. Are you serious? The lack of intelligence is disturbing. If you give a player with Griezmann's technical ability that much time and space in your own box, you are going to get punished. And that's exactly what happens. He picks his spot, slots it home, Atletico are 2-0 up. Now, similarly for the third goal, remember Balde was playing in a very advanced role in this game because Dani Olmo is just not a winger. This is where I thought Hansi Flick was wrong, because the last time he tried to use Dani Olmo in a left wing, we lost the game to Real Sociedad in the league.
What a turnaround!
I just wonder if Joao Cancelo would have been the better option in front of Balde to give us more in attack, but also more defensive cover down the left. But if we go back to the goal, Balde is taken out of the equation with this ball over the top. So we now have a man deficit in defense. Marc Casado has to be the man plugging the space because otherwise Atletico have a numerical advantage in attack. They recognize this, so they press the attack quickly. Look how far off Marc Casado still is. He just didn't have the legs to take on a team like Atletico. You cannot be a pivot and play like this. Think about Kante, Moses Caicedo, even Eric Garcia. You have to provide defensive cover when needed. Now, because Marc Casado isn't able to stay on Alvarez, Koundé is caught between two minds. Either he stays on the right to try and stop Lookman, or he goes over to try to stop Alvarez, who is the more dangerous option. He makes the right decision, but Alvarez is intelligent enough to exploit the numerical advantage by going to Lookman. Marc Casado is still in no man's land. He definitely can't close down quickly enough. Lookman gets off his shot, and my word, how about this for a finish? Barcelona were being torn apart, and it was no surprise that 4 minutes later, Hansi Flick takes out Marc Casado and brings in Robert Lewandowski. Now, it's certainly not a good look as a professional footballer if your manager takes you off before halftime. And Hansi Flick did try to reassure him, but such was the severity of the situation that something just had to be done. Now, was this entirely down to Casado? I don't think so. I think it was more about the way Hansi Flick set up his team in midfield, because even after Casado was taken off and Frenkie de Jong went into the pivot position, we conceded an even worse goal from the exact same move. Balde is beaten again on the left far too easily. The ball is played across to Lookman to stretch the defense again. By the time the ball gets to Lookman, look at the space between Alvarez and Frenkie de Jong. He is the pivot now. And just like Casado in the first half, he fails to plug the space at the edge of the box. He's miles away from Alvarez. He doesn't anticipate the pass. By the time he realizes the danger, it's already too late.
Alvarez, it's 4.
This for me wasn't about Marc Casado. The tactical execution was way off the mark, and it was partly down to something that I've spoken about in the past with this team. Guys, make no mistake, we all love La Masia, and the quality of talent that is being produced from our academy is simply brilliant. But talent alone cannot win you the biggest trophies. You need leadership. Unfortunately, because of injuries and Barcelona's financial issues, the club has struggled to bring in enough experience in certain areas of the pitch to establish some leadership in the team. These young players lose sight of what's directly in front of them and fail to grasp the moment. You look at Atletico with the likes of Koke, Llorente, Griezmann, Molina, Alvarez. They've got players with the experience required to make the right decisions at certain times. I mean, the discipline with which Lookman and Llorente supported Matteo Ruggeri all game long just to keep Lamine Yamal quiet tells you all you need to know about the difference in mentality and maturity between these two teams. Nothing is won simply by being good. You have to prove it every game on the pitch. You must earn the right to play. This is competitive football. We've seen it from time to time with this team. In games against weaker opposition, talent will get them through. But against the big teams with big players with experience, they just lack the maturity and the right mentality to give the game what it needs. This is the problem with sometimes having such a young squad. Frankie de Jong experienced this back at Ajax against Tottenham in the semi-final of the Champions League. When you don't have enough experience to keep the players grounded, they will always fall short in the big games. I did highlight this in the game against Sociedad, but some of you in the comments said it was just a blip and we had nothing to worry about. And I don't want to single out any of these players for criticism just yet, but a number of them just fail to understand what is required of them in certain moments. This is where we miss Rafinha, Pedri and Marcus Rashford. If these injuries continue, we might end up with nothing but the Super Cup come the end of the season.
Oh, it's deflected, and then Rafinha.
Okay, enough of my ranting, guys. It's time to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of this Barcelona side? Is this a question of tactics, or are we just lacking the right players with the right mentality to make the most of the tactics? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm thinking of making a video on how we could possibly line up against Atletico in the second leg to stage a miracle comeback, so let me know if you want to see that in the comments. I'll be back here to analyse the game against Girona on Monday. I know everyone's feeling upset, but please don't let it get to you. It's just football and there's always room to bounce back. Until next time, guys, see you soon, and Visca El Barça.